Hey everyone, welcome back to English for Pinoys. This is Eric, and today we are going to continue talking about count and non-count nouns. If you haven't watched part 1 of this series, you can click on the link above. Just for a quick review, again, count nouns, these are nouns that can be counted. They have singular and plural forms. Singular count nouns can be preceded by the articles a, an, or the, or numerals. On the other hand, non-count nouns are nouns that cannot be counted. They have no plural forms, and they are also called mass nouns. Certain quantifiers can be used before non-count nouns, like some, a lot of, and pieces of. So you can say some equipment, a lot of furniture, and pieces of information. Now, some of us are confused as to what we're going to use before nouns. Is it few? Is it little? Is it many? Or much? Okay, so here's the rule. You use few before non-count noun. Before count nouns. Okay, so we get a couple of examples here. There are only a few items on my grocery list. So the noun there is items. It's a count noun, of course. You have the plural form, the S form of items, so you use few. Another one, only a few steps more to climb and we're there. So the noun here is steps. It's a count noun. It has a plural form, and therefore we use few. What about little? When we talk about little, we're not talking about size here. We're talking here about amount. Okay? So little is used before non-count nouns. Examples. I know a little information about the project. Of course, the noun there is information. It's a non-count noun. You cannot use few. You don't say I know a few information. You say a little information. Another example, a little knowledge can be dangerous. Of course, the non-count noun there is knowledge, and therefore we use little. You cannot use few there. What about the comparative form of few and little? Okay, let's start with few. The comparative form of few is fewer, and again, of course, it's used before count nouns. A couple of examples. First, I have fewer things to discuss now. So the noun there is things. It's a count noun, obviously. Therefore, we use fewer. And then in the second example, you know when you go to a grocery or supermarket, and there's an express lane there, and then the sign says 12 items or less. If you think about it, it's actually incorrect. Why? Because you're talking about items, and items is a count noun. There's a plural form. In fact, there's a numeral before it, 12. Therefore, you cannot say 12 items or less. You say 12 items or fewer. Okay? Now let's go to less, which is the comparative form of little. Again, we're talking about amount here. So less is used before non-count nouns. Couple of examples. There is less information in the journal. Of course, the non-count noun, there is information, and therefore you use less. You cannot say there is a few information. Another example is we caught less fish today. The non-count noun there is fish, and therefore we use less. By the way, fish can be both a count and a non-count noun, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. Right now, we are going to give examples for many and much. So many is used before count nouns. Examples, they need many tables for the party. The noun there, of course, is tables. It's a count noun, and therefore you use many. Many restaurants in the Philippines serve rice. Well, think about it. It's actually most restaurants, if not all restaurants in the Philippines serve rice. But just for the sake of this example, many restaurants. So the noun there is restaurants. It's a count noun. Therefore, we use many. And then for much, much is used before non-count nouns. Examples, you can get much wisdom from that book. Of course, the non-count noun is wisdom. And then in the second example, too much physics can drive you crazy. Of course, the non-count noun is physics, and therefore we use much. And as I've said earlier, there are certain nouns that can be both count and non-count, depending on how they're used. For example, you have food versus foods, fruit versus fruits, and then fish versus fishes. I just noticed that they all start with the letter F. All right. Now, so when do we use food? When do we use foods? In other words, when is food a count noun, and when is it a non-count noun? Okay, so the easy way to know if you're using it as a count or non-count noun is to try to determine if you're using the word as if you're referring to an amount or you're referring to types or kinds. Okay, for example, if you're talking about the amount of food, then that's a non-count noun. Okay, you say she ate a lot of food this morning. I don't know how much, but she ate a lot. So you're talking about the amount there. Okay, so you're using it as a non-count noun. But if you're talking about the types of food, then it becomes a count noun. You can now say there are various foods served on the table. So maybe there's meat there's bread, there are eggs and hot dogs, whatever. So different types of food. So that's various foods. Now it becomes a count noun. Okay, another example. Let's deal with the word fruit here. Again, we're talking about amount versus types or kinds. So if we're talking about the amount of fruit, it's a non-count. So we stored much fruit in the fridge. You're talking about the amount of fruit, okay? So there, it is a non-count noun. The word there is a non-count noun, fruit, okay? But if you're talking about different types of fruit, then it becomes a count noun. For example, I ate different fruits for dessert. For example, you ate mango or apple and strawberry and bananas. Okay, so you ate different kinds of fruits. So then you can say I ate different fruits for dessert. It's now a count noun. It's same with fish. If you're talking about the amount, it's a non-count noun. For example, the fisherman caught much fish today. Maybe 15 kilos of fish, 20 kilos of fish. You're talking about the amount. But if you're talking about the species, the number of the types of fish, then you can now use it as a count noun. For example, there is a variety of fishes in his aquarium. Okay, so that becomes a count noun. All right, so let's go to a couple of quick exercises, just for if we can answer them correctly. Let's see. A few or a little. Okay, I need blank coins to use that phone. And then there's blank equipment to be bought. Of course, the first thing you do is to look for the noun and try to determine if it's a count or a non-count noun. In the first example, of course, the noun is coins, and therefore the answer is what? A few. That's correct. But in the second example, what is the noun there? Equipment. Yep. Is it a count or a non-count? If you answered non-count, you're correct. Therefore, we say a little. So the correct answers would be I need a few coins to use that phone, and there's a little equipment to be bought. What about many or much? Okay, first item. There are blank books on the shelf. Again, look for the noun after the blank. It's books, right? Is it count or non-count? Of course it's count now. Therefore, we use many. That's correct. In the second example, he has blank confidence that he will pass the test. What's the noun there? If after the blank, it's confidence, right? Confidence, of course, is a non-count noun. Therefore, we use much. So the correct answers are there are many books on the shelf, and then he has much confidence that he will pass the test. Okay, another quick exercise here. Just try to determine if the following words are count or non-count. Let's start with tree. Is it count? You're correct. It's count noun. Hydrogen. It's non-count. Star. It's count. You can say stars. Mathematics. Yes, it's non-count. Of course, clothing. It's non-count. Cash. Non-count. Yep. And then smoke. Yep. Non-count again. And then phone. Yeah, there's a plural form for phone. You can say phones. You can put a numeral before it. 2 phones, 3 phones, and therefore phone is a count noun. All right, so that should do it for the topic, count and non-count nouns. I hope you found it helpful. Let me know if you have any topics that you'd like me to cover so that we can talk about it in the next videos. Until then, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and then subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Okay, so thank you for watching. This is Eric. I'll see you in the next one.